Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. This year's Academy Awards was the first since a cascade of sexual misconduct allegations against top entertainment moguls. In spite of promises to stick to the movies, the Oscars offered the usual sequel, brave stands that seemed as scripted as the films. It's an industry that has long aligned publicly with causes that advance and protect women. So for this week's cover story, we decided to go to L.A. and dig into Hollywood hypocrisy.
8 o'clock, Hollywood goes to town.
The sky ablaze with searchlights of every hue, photographers' flashlights popping everywhere, crowds of fans.
It's Hollywood, where everybody wants to be a star. Woo! Once in a blue moon, a star is born. Sometimes it turns out with help from the casting couch.
Lights flash, cameras click, the stars arrive, the most glittering parade in history.
The casting couch has been a persistent image in entertainment since the early 20th century.
The lovely usherettes are given a last-minute inspection.
Dancer Agnes DeMille once spoke of the casting couch supposedly operated by Broadway theater pioneers. They ran a brothel, she said. If you didn't sleep with them, you didn't get the part.
You've come a long way, baby, to get where you got to today.
Over the last 100 years, it turns out Hollywood hasn't really come such a long way. For all of its public posturing with the Me Too movement, critics say the entertainment industry is surprisingly backwards in striking respects.
How women are portrayed in films, how many women have speaking roles, and women that are in, sexualized positions and wearing, scanty attire. Hollywood is not, innocent in how society treats women.
Meg James covers the business of entertainment for the LA Times. Does the entertainment industry have a double standard when it comes to sexual misconduct?
When the Access Hollywood tapes came out, everyone in Hollywood went nuts. They took to Twitter. Everyone was condemning the behavior that Trump, was captured on audio tape talking about. And then Harvey Weinstein happens, and there was, for 3 or 4 days, there was just silence. And to me, that struck me as being a double standard.
It's not that easy, Scarlett.
Watch iconic films today, and some find the most memorable scenes cringeworthy in terms of message.
This is one night you're not turning me out.
A friend said to me the other day, I watched an old James Bond movie, and there was a sexual assault in every scene. That wasn't presented as a sexual assault. It was presented as some sort of, romantic plot in the film.
Yeah. Now let's both play.
I think we live in a rape culture. And I define that as a culture that both doesn't take rape seriously as a crime, but also eroticizes and celebrates sexual violence.
Caroline Heldman is a professor of politics and a survivor advocate. She says she was let go as a TV commentator for rebuffing the advances of a senior executive. When I say Hollywood hypocrisy, when it applies to this topic, what does that make you think of?
Hollywood hypocrisy pertaining to sexual violence, I think, refers to the fact that we have known that casting couch culture promotes sexual violence for a century, and we've done nothing about it. For many people, it's just a PR stunt, because if you knew about this issue 20, 30 years ago, and you had the power to do something about it, why didn't you do something about it?
When we talked about the double standard, one thing that I was thinking back to was Ashley Judd speaking so judgmentally, perhaps rightfully so, of her thoughts on President Trump and his behavior, yet not at the time revealing what had allegedly happened to her.
I am a nasty woman. I'm not as nasty as a man who looks like he bathes in Cheeto dust.
So projecting against somebody else, not related to her situation, while in her own backyard, all of this was going on.
I think that's a fascinating observation. When Ashley talked to Variety a couple years before, she talked about being assaulted by a studio head. And at the time, people thought that it was Harvey Weinstein, but she wouldn't utter his name. And I think that was the power of the reporting by the New York Times, Ronan Farrow with the New Yorker and others, was finally women came together and said, we can protect each other, we can speak out. So I think that for Ashley, there probably was a few years of trying to figure out, come to grips with this behavior.
You had said the sordid allegations against Weinstein put Hollywood and Democrats in an awkward spot. What was the awkward spot in a nutshell?
That Harvey Weinstein had been a major fundraiser for Hillary Clinton, had been close to the Clintons for years. He was a power broker not only in Hollywood circles and Oscar voting, but also in Democratic politics. I think for the Democrats, and I think they're continuing to wrestle with this, I think that's one of the reasons why Al Franken was tossed so quickly, was how do they become the party of zero tolerance when such behavior is so widespread? And when they've also benefited from people who have alleged to have perpetrated the behavior.
Do you think some of the big Hollywood power brokers may have gotten a pass over the years because they contribute so much to the Democratic Party and to liberal interests?
I think the reason that Hollywood power brokers have been protected has a lot more to do with the fact that they have fiefdoms, and that Hollywood runs on these informal fiefdoms where you develop a lot of power and then you dole out favors, jobs, you get contracts. And so we place a lot of power in the hands of a very small number of people, and that's what protects them, not their association with the Democratic Party.
Christine Parath teaches at Georgetown University and studies uncivil behavior in the workplace.
When I've talked to people that work in Hollywood production firms and things like that, you know, one of the things that they've said is many people get treated like props that eat, you know, that that's how people roll. Unless you have high status, you don't get the respect.
Do you think Hollywood is going to see some sort of big sea change now because of this?
I do. I think I've been very impressed with the way that women have spoken up about it and how they've bonded together to try to set new norms for the industry.
Heldman isn't optimistic in the long term. Do you think some of these women speaking out now in Hollywood may suffer repercussions if we look in 3 years, 5 years down the road?
The problem with coming forward in order to raise awareness is that it still comes with retaliation. I would like to see 3 to 5 years out what sort of retaliation the women who've spoken up in Hollywood are facing. My guess is that they will experience very high rates of retaliation, mostly in subtle forms, right, where they're labeled a troublemaker and they don't get hired at other places.
The closing lines of this particular Hollywood story are still being written. Will scandal retire the casting couch once and for all? What will happen to the faded heroines who are bringing the problems to light?
The clock moves on. Hollywood again has gone to town.